With the release of the set WoW Resurgence, the color black got key cards to help support older archetypes that desperately needed it. And in this video, I will show you one of the archetypes that benefited greatly from this new set of cards injecting life into it. So we are talking about none other than the Mecha Kabura leader. The Mecha Kabura leader is a wish leader. It came out in BT13, and on attack, it is able to search your life or your deck for up to 2 copies of Dark Dragon Balls. Once you have 7 Dark Dragon Balls in your drop, you're able to perform his wish by untapping one, drawing one, and force your opponent to choose a battle card in their drop and send it to the warp. Once you get to the backside, that's where all the magic happens. He's able to attack and draw, and then on top of that, he has an activate main once per turn that you can use to get one of 2 very powerful effects. The main one that you're going to be using is taking control of their battle card cost 4 or less, switching it to active mode, and negating their skills for the game. So it's a kind of a soft removal that you could then use to threaten your opponent back with the cards that you take. Then he also has the ability to place a card to the bottom of the deck, remove the 7 Dark Dragon Balls to give himself triple attack. His auto draw is not once per turn, so you get to draw 3 cards by doing this. Now, unlike a traditional wish leader, he does not flip back to the front, so you still get to keep this 15k body after using that effect, and you still get to draw cards because it'll stay on the backside. So now that we got the leader out the way, let's talk about the Dark Dragon Balls themselves. We are still playing 7 copies of Dark Dragon Balls, being 4 copies of the Dark Empire Strikes Back and 3 copies of Yearning for the Dark Dragon Balls. Just as a refresher, the Dark Empire Strikes Back is actually free if your leader is Mecha Kabura only, and then you're allowed to pitch either a Dark Dragon Ball or a Demon Realm Raid / Demon God to be able to draw 2 cards. And then you could make your opponent warp a battle card out of their drop. In the case of Yearning for the Dark Dragon Balls, this card is very versatile in that it is able to be used as removal for 1 drops by forcing your opponent to warp one of their battle cards cost 1 or less. Usually in the early part of the game, there's only really 1 choice. And then you also have the ability to use it as an activate battle to give your leader or battle card +5. Then lastly, you could pitch it to the Dark Empire Strikes Back to be able to draw 2 cards. Now that we got that out the way, we're going to start on the first of the new cards. One of the weaknesses that the deck had was an inability to be able to do anything if it went first. Usually you would play like some top 5 searcher or something like that, but it usually didn't get the same velocity as you would get with being able to attack. Well, now we finally have a 1 drop that is worthwhile. And this is none other than Dark King Mecha Kabura, ruler of the Demon Realm. So one thing that's really great about him is that on play, you're able to search your deck for up to 2 Dark Dragon Balls. 1 goes to your hand, 1 goes to the drop. So that right there automatically sets you up. Typically you open up with 1 Dark Dragon Ball, so you're able to then pitch that other Dark Dragon Ball, or you could pitch one of your Demon Gods to that Dark Dragon Ball to get you started. If you're 2 to 3 down, now when you swing on turn 2, you can get 2 more, play another 1 drop, or play something else to then get to the 7 in the drop, so you can wish early if you choose to. While this card is in the drop, which is reason why it's kind of cool to just pitch 1 to Dark Empire Strikes Back, while it's in your drop, you could pay triple black, send it to your warp, and then send one of your opponent's battle cards to their warp to play from your hand the boss monster, which is Dark King Mecha Kabura Power Restored. So by doing this, you actually are shaving a whole cost off of it. Typically you would have to pay 4 for this with his skill to play it, but being able to play it for 3, it makes it even more efficient than it already kind of was. And this card right here, if you have 4 or more cards in your opponent's warp, you are able to give them a full board wipe and then choose 2 of their battle cards which cost 7 or less and put them into play. The other great thing about this card is that it gives this guy a barrier, so that way he's protected during your turn against opposing the gates that remove things and so forth. Next up, we have the new Salsa Violent Magic Assault. Salsa is important because Salsa is no longer handicapped by the effects that the original set of cards had, which was the requirement for 2 or more Dark Dragon Balls in the drop. One thing that often came up with those cards was that once you use the leader effect to gain triple attack, it was very hard for you to do anything with those cards other than charge them. And so finding the right ratios was really ugly. This guy right here just requires you to have 2 or more energy and your leader to be Mecha Kabura. So as such, you could pay black to either play it from your your hand or for the drop. Because you could play it from the drop, he's one of your main targets for the Dark Empire Strikes Back on top of a Dark Dragon Ball itself. So that way you don't lose any value. You just pitch him, draw 2, A1, play him. On play, he is a 15k crit that also does the same, warp the card from your opponent's hand and they draw a card. Those effects might seem like they're pointless. They set up the warp area requirements for your battle cards that you play in your deck. Another card that they printed, and there's another replacement, is Shroom, Violent Magic Assault. We only played 3 copies of the Shroom, even though he is an amazing card, because his auto is limit 1. So you play him for black if you have 2 or more energy, and your leader is Mecha Cabra. And then when you attack with him, you are able to warp one of your opponent's battle cards cost 7 or less. When that happens, if they have 2 or more cards in their warp, you draw a card. So even if there's nothing for you to warp when you swing, you still get to draw the card as long as they have 2 or more cards in their warp. This is a lot of pressure. He's a 20k for 1 energy and also card draw, so this is going to draw a lot of ire and attention from your opponent. We do still play 3 copies of the Toa, Demon God Toa, Ritual at Hand. Reason being is that she's arguably the best ritual at hand. You play her, she's generic, 1 energy removal for any battle card, as well as doing the whole warp a card, draw a card from the hand, which can over time disrupt your opponent or even force them in a situation where if they're low in their deck, you can use this to force them to draw extra cards and possibly cause them to kind of sort of mill out. But the main other reason we play it other than the removal is that sometimes you need to get to the 7 Dragon Balls in a drop as fast as possible. So you play this, you dump 2, it's also a blocker, so it helps protect you, and then usually when you play this, you can wish right away. So now that we got that out the way, the next new card that we added to the deck is Toa Combo Attack. One of the best things about the deck that it received was the Mirror Unison. The Mirror Unison has a really strong interaction with the leader. What the leader does on the backside with taking the opponent's card and being able to make it skillless interacts with the Mirror's +1 ability. But before it was kind of difficult to use Mirror because he cost 3 energy. So you had to hold off your wish until turn 3 so you could play him, then wish to at least have 1 energy up to protect yourself or the card itself. That is no longer really the case because now you have this Toa. Assuming that you have all the Dark Dragon Balls out your life and that you're basically close to wishing, if not wishing on that turn, meaning you could play this on 3 as well. For 2 energy, you get to warp a life, play the Unison from your deck with a marker on it, and then warp up to 2 cards from the top of your deck. Now, what do you do with those cards that you warped? Well, she is able to remove from game one of your skillless battle cards to combo with one of your battle cards in your warp with 5k combo power. This does not require her to be in battle. You just do it on any battle as an activate battle once per turn. She also has the flex, so there's nothing really stopping her from coming in. By warping that life, it could get you to certain health thresholds, such as 5 or less life or token negate. So we already mentioned the Unison. Let's just go over them again, which is Super Mirror Overflowing Power. So this guy has an auto at the beginning of your opponent's turn. You are able to give one of your skillless battle cards blocker. Now, you will not be able to do that with the card that you took from your opponent because it's actively being negated. But if you do get any tokens around or anything like that, you are able to give one of those tokens blockers. Where that come up and is in a pretty good situation is like, for instance, Android 21 give you tokens. You could then assign those tokens blocker and be able to use them for defense if you wanted to. But the main thing that you want to do is the second +1, which is to pick up, remove one of your skillless battle cards from the game, warp one of your opponent's battle cards and draw a card. That's where his interaction with the leader comes into play. You're able to take their card, swing with it. It is skillless because the skills are negated. Then you tick up, remove it from the game, warp one of your opponent's battle cards. There's no cross restriction on what you could warp. Then you draw a card. So that way you basically are 2 for 1 in their board. And again, going back to the tokens, if you're going against like say 21, you're able to tick up, remove the tokens that they give you, to remove threats on their board and draw a card. So it makes it so that they don't really want to give you tokens so that you don't benefit off them too much. And if you're having issues getting skillless battle cards, his first +1 allows you to make 2 Demon Realm Soldier tokens that you could then use for things like the blocker skill or as combo power as needed. 2 copies of Demon God Toa Furious Onslaught. This card right here is really good in certain matchups. You always have the ability to just make 2 tokens as a +1 to satisfy her cost, which is double black and you having 2 skillless battle cards on board. If your opponent gave you like a token, you could then take one of their cards, play this guy for a play Toa for 2. You can swing with that card, swing with Toa, remove as an auto, remove 2 of your skillless battle cards from the game. You standard, draw a card, and she becomes a 25k double striker. It's a powerful card in general. If you're going against, again, 21 or the new cell or whatever, you're able to just deplete those tokens really fast using these skill, and will force your opponent to have to deal with her as well as your Unison and that new Toa as quickly as possible. Now we're going to go to the utility. Super combo, we play 4 copies of Demon God, Toa, Onslaught of the Dark Dragon Balls. It's a Sparking 5 super combo, which is easy for you to do in any kind of wish deck. We play 3 copies of Black Smoke Dragon. This card has utility throughout every single facet of the game. Whether or not it's early in the game to get rid of a utility barrier card that your opponent is hoping to have stick out on the table for a little bit, or to get rid of a Unison that is key to their strategy, or if it's mid-game, we need to deal with a barrier threat that we don't have any other answer for, or to be able to play it and draw 2 cards, which is also useful in the late game. 3 copies of Supreme Kai at Time. Again, it's another card that cares about how many cards are in your opponent's warp. If there's 3 or more cards in you or your opponent's warp, you are able to activate this card as a negate for 1 energy. On play, it warps one of your opponent's battle cards, then it plays it back at the end of the turn when the skill's negated. You typically want to use this on Z battle cards, tokens, or anything like that as far as like what you warp, or even ultimates, so that it doesn't come back. Sometimes though, you have to hit something else so that you could like not take another hit, or just to clear the way in general. 2 copies of Oceanus. This bounces back between 2 and 3 copies, but it's your traditional floodgate. He does have his own floodgate in the form of the Poutine for the deck, but I believe that Oceanus is more resilient to things such as Tyrannical Blow and Poutine. That's why I would prefer to play Oceanus. 1 copy are Dark Broly, Heartless Berserker. I wanted to have an overwhelm in the deck. The good side about this card is that it's reusable. So after you use it and you warp something and you swing with it, when it goes away, you can just pay 2 later on, hit, warp another card, and now it's out there permanently. So I just think that's a pretty good thing. Evil Sand, Malice Made Flesh. You do activate the skill to play double black. Your opponent has 3 or more energy. Play this card and remove one of their battle cards ignoring barrier. So it's a 4th piece of barrier removal, including the 3 smoke dragons. And it has an auto that says that you are able to look at your opponent's life. If they have 2 or more life, choose one of those cards, send it to the warp. And you can choose one of their battle cards that would cost 7 or less from their warp, play it on your side of the board. That's great because for 2 energy, you get a 40k and another card. Similar to how your Mecha Kabura does similarly for 3 energy, 30k, and 2 7 or less. But he has a persistent effect as an auto that says when your opponent plays a battle card with cost 7 or less, you're able to warp one of your battle cards to take control of it. It is a auto once per turn, so it's the first thing they play. But the cool thing about this skill, it does not choose. So even if they play something with barrier, that is 7 or less, you're able to take it. One of the other things that come up is that if it's your turn and they hit you with a floodgate or whatever, you are able to take that floodgate before this auto's resolve. And that way the auto does not resolve for them. You're able to still keep attacking against them. Lastly, we have our extra cards, which is 2 copies of Petrification, 2 copies of Support the Dark Empire. Support the Dark Empire needs no introduction. We have the ability to play a token negate, and we have these beautiful new Demon Realm Soldier tokens, so you might as well use them. Petrification, on the other hand, is a card that flies in and outside of the meta, and I think right now is a really powerful card in the meta. Petrification has a unique ability to stop pending autos. Negates an attack, and you can pitch a card from your hand. Choose one of your opponent's cards ignoring barrier. That card cannot activate its auto or attack or be used in a combo until the end of your turn. So they don't get access to the card for a full turn cycle. This is good against things like, I'll bring it up again, Android 21. They play the big 8 drop, they swing on you, activate Petrification, shuts it all the way down. They don't get to make you pitch 2 more cards from your hand. They don't get to restander for the dual attack. They don't get to untap the 5. And it just makes it really, really bad for them. Then you can keep going down the list of cards that this just completely jacks up just by using it. Put it back into this deck, because this deck has multiple targets that could pitch to it, including new Shroom, so that it kind of negates the actual cost of petrification. If you pitch this card, then on the following turn, just pay a black and play it from your drop. Feels less bad. I just think it's like just very good in this particular deck. If you have any suggestions for the deck, please comment down below with them. I will have the link to the DBS deck list so that you can look at it and not have to figure out how many I said, anything like that. And I'll catch you next time. This is VG Time, signing out.